I've met postmasters personally to hear how their lives and the lives of their families have been affected by these events. And every time I'm moved by the impact that these events have had on individual postmasters' lives and their fight for justice over a number of years. And I'd like to pay tribute to colleagues on both sides of the House for the way that they have supported postmasters in their efforts to expose the truth and see justice done. Today, I'd like to take the opportunity to update the House on the latest steps that the government is taking to ensure that fair compensation is paid to people impacted by the scandal. Now, as you all know, the members of the GLO performed a great public service by bringing the case in 2019, which exposed the scandal. And that's why I was pleased that the Chancellor announced in March this year that further funding is being made available to ensure that they receive similar levels of compensation to that which is available to their non-GLO peers. Now, today, I can update the House that the government intends to make an interim payment of compensation to eligible members of the GLO who are not already covered by other compensation support, and that's totalling £19.5 million. Together with a share of the December 2019 settlement that we understand was distributed to the GLO postmasters, this brings the total of compensation to around £30 million. Postmasters will be contacted in the coming weeks to submit an application, after which we aim to distribute the funds within a few weeks of receiving that application. And I hope that will go some way in helping many postmasters who have and still are facing hardships. But in parallel, we'll continue to work at pace on delivering the final compensation scheme for the GLO. And I can confirm that we will be appointing Freeths to access the data and methodology that they developed in relation to the distribution of the 2019 settlement. Freeths represented the GLO claimants and have vital knowledge and expertise based on their involvement in that case. And this will allow us to work at pace on the design of a scheme with the JFSA and Freeths to give those in the GLO similar compensation to their non-GLO peers. As promised in March, we will informally consult with members of the GLO about the proposed scheme's operation. And I'm also pleased to announce that members of the GLO group will be able to claim reasonable legal fees as part of participating in the compensation scheme. And I hope that will allay any concerns that they may have about meeting the costs of seeking legal advice and support when applying to the scheme. Turning now to progress on compensation for overturned criminal convictions, I'm pleased to report to the House that interim payments are progressing well. As of 29th of June, there have been 75 overturned convictions, with the most recent convictions being overturned just in recent weeks. And the Post Office has received 74 applications for interim payments, including several new applications recently. 67 offers have been accepted by and paid out to claimants, totalling nearly £7 million. This marks significant progress, with 10 additional interim payments made to postmasters since I updated the Bays Select Committee on the 11th of January 2022. And I'm pleased that these interim payments have helped to deliver an early down payment on the compensation due to affected postmasters in advance of full and final compensation packages being agreed. Now, for those postmasters with an overturned conviction who have already submitted quantified claims, I can share that we are working with Post Office to agree part payment of agreed elements of claims, such as loss of earnings, wherever possible, and will continue to do so with additional claims when they're submitted. Now, taking this step should enable us to avoid undue delays by awarding partial compensation while the outstanding matters are resolved. But I acknowledge that one area where it's been challenging to agree compensation is non-pecuniary damages, some of which reflect the wider impact on postmasters' lives that these wrongful convictions have had. That includes compensation for their loss of liberty or impacts on their mental health. A number of the postmasters have agreed to refer this issue to the process of early neutral evaluation to be conducted by former Supreme Court Judge Lord Dyson. It's hoped that this evaluation will facilitate the resolution of those issues, and we stand ready as government to support the delivery of the early neutral evaluation process and keen to ensure that the outcomes of this process enable swift compensation. So I urge all postmasters with a Horizon-related conviction to continue to come forward to seek to have these overturned. They're being contacted individually by the CCRC and other relevant bodies to encourage them to do so. In addition to the progress and compensation for those with overturned criminal convictions, good progress has been made on delivering compensation for those in the historic shortfall scheme. As of 23rd of June, 65% of eligible claimants have now received an offer, meaning £29 million has now been offered, and that 444 further postmasters have been offered compensation since my last update to the House. And I'd like to thank the independent panels for their diligent work in progressing those cases. As I've said previously, I've set the Post Office the ambition to make 100% of HSS offers by the end of the calendar year, and the Government is working closely with Post Office to achieve this. But as I said before, it's important, in addition to providing compensation, that we learn lessons so that something similar can never happen again. And that's why the Government set up the Post Office Horizon IT inquiry and put it on a statutory footing to ensure that it has all the powers that it needs to investigate what happened, establish the facts, and make recommendations for the future. So we're cooperating fully with the inquiry to ensure that the facts of what happened are established and lessons learned.